Hello, everybody. You've tuned in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance. Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. We want to thank them for their continued support of the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I want to thank my friend and videographer, Tom Trial, for putting us on YouTube each and every week. Make sure you visit the Indiana State Police YouTube site for all of our Indiana State Police Roadshows. And there's a lot of old video that Tom's got on there, new videos, so anything that he's doing video-wise is on our ISP YouTube site. Make sure you take a look at that and see what Tom has to offer. Today I've got a new guest with me. I've got a Morgan County Probation Officer, Erik, spelled E-R-I-K.
That's right.
Burns with me today from Morgan County Probation. And Erik, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I understand all this radio stuff is not very new to you. You've kind of been involved in that before.
Right. It's not too intimidating. No, in high school, I was in a TV productions class in Martinsville and worked for a local radio station there as well. And I actually graduated from Ball State with a telecommunications degree in '08 and had a radio show there. So this is not too intimidating for me now.
So was that you followed in the footsteps of David Letterman then?
Well, I did. I was actually, my senior year was when David Letterman came back to Ball State because we had named the media building after him. So I got to see him.
All that money.
Yeah, exactly. After he got all that money. So I got to see him speak my senior year, which was really cool. He hadn't been back to Ball State in quite some time before that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good deal. Graduated Martinsville?
I did. Yep, in '04.
Good for you. Great, great. So you go to graduate from Martinsville. You're in media in Martinsville, and that's TV 15, right?
Yes.
Down there? So you're in media there. You go to Ball State, and you're involved in media.
Yep.
And then you become a probation officer.
I do. it's
where do we bounce off the wall here,
exactly.
Brian?
Well, I graduated in '08, in obviously the middle of one of the worst recessions that we have seen. And toward the kind of end of my college career, I was looking at maybe working for a news station in sports, and I learned very quickly early in my senior year that in order to do that, I was going to have to pretty much just go wherever their job was for about 2 years and then go to another job for 2 years. And I didn't want to bounce around that much. So I had a marketing minor. So I was looking for something maybe in sales or something like that. But obviously because of the recession, that didn't work out. So I had a family friend who worked for Morgan County Probation, said that they were looking for someone, just kind of thought might be something I would look into. And so I applied and got the job and honestly thought that I'd be there for maybe a year or two, but 9 years.
How long has it been?
It's been 9 years. So 9 years later, I'm still there, and I really do enjoy it. I can genuinely say that it's something that I enjoy doing, which is a bit of a surprise, but I'm glad I've done what I've done.
Good, good, good. So what's one of your biggest surprises? Obviously, this is something you hadn't been involved with before, hadn't been a law enforcement officer, or hadn't been involved in probation or anything brought it about. Was there anything that kind of, wow, this is something I really didn't realize that this happened in probation?
I think when I first started, I honestly thought probation was going to be a thing where someone would come into my office or I'd go see them. Are you doing everything you're supposed to? You know, are you using? Take your drug screen, make your payments, you're good to go. So there's a lot more involved. You kind of build a lot more of a relationship with clients, and obviously each client is different. Nobody's, there's no black and white case. So you just kind of building a relationship with different clients more than I thought I would when I first started this job.
Tell us a little bit about how this works. So if a person is sentenced and they're sentenced to probation, is that when they first make contact with you? Right.
Usually in Morgan County, typically when someone is sentenced, they come straight from the courthouse and then reports probation for what we call intake, or just kind of an orientation. And then usually
is that with their lawyer? Do they present? Or is
no, lawyer's usually not present at this time. After their sentence, the lawyer is pretty much done. Sometimes lawyers will walk over with them, just make sure they get there.
Yeah.
But no, after they meet for the intake portion, that's usually the first time they meet a probation officer, and then we'll schedule them with their next appointment or their drug and alcohol assessment or whatever it is that the judge has ordered them to do.
Is there family involved in probation? Do they come in with them, or is that a one-on-one, or how does
Typically with adult probation, that's what I deal with. Adult probation, it's usually just one-on-one. Now, obviously, there are some cases where we may want to talk with a parent or grandparent that they may be living with that may have some questions, and as long as they're on a release and confidentiality, we can talk to them. We're more than happy to do that. Now, the juvenile side, I know you have a juvenile probation officer coming in.
Right.
They're a lot more involved with the family atmosphere and that type of thing.
Okay. So did you find any stress, any undue what I'm looking, you grew up in Martinsville.
I did.
You're doing probation in Martinsville.
I am.
Has this ever come into play?
It really hasn't. Not too bad. Not as there have been a couple of times where I've had someone on probation that I maybe went to high school with, but wasn't very close with. Obviously, Martinsville, the population there's 13, 14,000 people live in Martinsville. You're probably going to run into somebody. Chances are, if you've lived there all your life like I have, there's a good chance you're going to run into someone you know in some way, shape, or form. So it hasn't been, no, I haven't had too awkward of a situation. And usually our boss, if there's a person we don't feel comfortable with because of a history with them, or we were friends with them, or know their family, then we obviously would have someone else assigned to that case. But no, there hasn't been too many awkward occasions where I've had to deal with someone who I've been really close with and anything like that.
How about around town? Do you ever run into anybody
that does happen a lot? That does happen a lot. So in Morgan County, where we are required to live in Morgan County, so as we're supposed to live in the county that we work at, so we do around town see clients and things like that, past clients. How I handle that, I don't approach them, I let them approach me. And if they approach me and want to chat, that's fine. Exactly. But I don't usually approach them or try to chat with them or investigate them or anything like that. So few instances like that, but nothing too crazy or uncomfortable.
Now, you say you're required to live it. Is that, do you get call outs or something, or do you have to be within a certain distance, or is that? There
are certain officers that do have call outs, community corrections, people that work with home detention. Me, not so much.
Okay.
But there are a few, a juvenile officer who you will speak with, he's on call. So there are a few of us in our office that do have to be called out, but I'm not one of those.
Okay. So what changed from 9 years ago? Has the job changed? Has your responsibilities changed? Or
a little bit has changed. And I when I started, I guess I should say this, it was still kind of the old school probation, if I should say. It was kind of that, they come in, are you doing what you're supposed to do? Are you using any drugs? You used any alcohol? You paying your fees? All right. See it. So when I first came in, it was still kind of like that, but now it has started with the Indiana risk assessment and a lot more like evidence-based practices stuff. It's changed a little bit where we see obviously the drug problem that we've had, not just here in Morgan County or Indiana, but pretty much nationwide.
Absolutely.
That we're trying to get on top of this as best we can and try to work with clients and people on probation, so that way we're not just throwing them in jail, they're coming out and they still have these same problems, addictions and things like that. So it's kind of we're a lot more hands-on now than we were 9 years ago.
Is there a certain protocol each and every client goes by, or is it different from each and every client?
Each client has a set of conditions of probation, so rules that they have to follow, and most of those are pretty set. Now the judge may put some additional conditions or different conditions for certain people for whatever reason, but like I said earlier, not every client's black and white. I mean, everyone has different circumstances, so when we're working with someone, we have to take a lot to factor that in. Now, obviously, we're going to do what's best for the community and the safety of the community, the safety for the client, things like that. But no, you kind of have to, there's not like a set, if they do this, this is what you do. If they do 1, you go to B. If they go do 2, you go to A. Nothing like that. You just kind of have to, like I said, build a relationship with that client and figure out what's best for them and what's best for the safety of the community around them as well.
Again, you're listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. I'm speaking with Erik Burns. He's a probation officer in Morgan County and been doing this for 9 years within the Morgan County Probation Department. So you started out, and did you just have one specific OWI when you started out? Is that what you worked with then?
Well, when I first started out, I worked with typically just OWI cases. There'd be a few others that maybe get in, but my main caseload was OWI offenders.
Now that's kind of switched off.
That has switched off a little bit. Yeah, now our office is, we kind of have a mixed bag. I could have several OWI offenders, but I could have some drug offenses, some domestic battery, and now we really don't have too many specialized caseloads in Morgan County anymore. It kind of, everybody does a little bit of everything. We do have Officer Jack Blackman. He does strictly deals with sex offenders, so he has a specialty caseload, and there may be a few others, but for the most part we all kind of supervise different clients with different charges. Yeah.
Now with your position, Does everyone report to you? Do you have to go up and follow up with them, or how does that work?
Typically, people do report to me in my office. Now, we do home visits. We try to schedule home visits out, and then there might be a time where if we, get an anonymous call that something is not right with the client, we may surprise them with a home visit. So about, once a month, we do home visits and go out and kind of see what their environment looks like and kind of see what their home life looks like. And we might do some pop-in visits where they're not really expecting us.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we do. But most of the time, it's people are coming into my office and I'm talking to them in my office. Now, obviously, community corrections, home detention, entirely different story. They're out and about a lot more than what I am.
How do you work with somebody that's committed a crime in Morgan County, but maybe they live out of Morgan County or out of state? How does that work?
Well, I actually am part of the Interstate Compact, which deals with transferring clients who live out of state or want to be supervised out of state. And that is a process that sometimes can get difficult. These cases can be either the easiest cases I have or some of the most difficult. And the reason being is it's not something I do every day or even every week. Not every day someone comes in and says, hey, I have an OWI in Indiana, but I need to be supervised in Alabama. So it's not something you get used to, get in a habit with. Also, there are just so many different rules and you have to kind of follow and look into before you can transfer someone. So you have to always be reading up on the new rules. And it makes sense. Obviously,
right.
You have to have those rules in order for someone to transfer to a different state. So Indiana Court Services, has done a good job of trying to simplify these rules. But like I said, when you don't do it every day, it's kind of hard to follow. And then second, what makes it a little bit more difficult is I'm the type of guy that when something is going on or I've got to fix something, I want to do it right then. Well, if someone's being supervised out of state, I have to send basically it's like an email to that supervising officer in that state and wait for their reply. And sometimes that's kind of hard to do when you may have to sit for a day or two to figure out what the next step is.
So you work with the probation officer in that state, and that person would actually visit that probation officer.
Right, correct. Yeah, so if I transfer someone, let's say to Texas, then they would actually be supervised. They would be going and visiting with the probation officer in that county in Texas, and vice versa. If someone is transferred to Indiana, they're seeing me, even though their case may be out of, let's say, Oregon.
And so you have some of those also?
I do, yeah.
Okay. And that works the same way then, so you're back and forth on...
Exactly, that's back and forth. So obviously if they do something that they're not supposed to, I'm sending out a message to their supervising officer, kind of waiting to see what they want to do next.
So how do you do on the laws on that? Is your probation... is the program, is each one of the rules and regulations and the laws, are they the same? Or
I mean, for the most part, when someone signs up, or just trying to transfer their probation to a different state, I get to look at that and see what we can do and what we can't.
Okay.
They might have a requirement that our county is just not capable of doing. And if that's the case, I would have to let them know, hey, we can't do that. Okay. And then we'd have to either work something out or figure something out there. So for the most part, we try to work it where the county can supervise and not have any problems with legal things or programs that just can't be done. So by the time they get to me, we've worked it out where we know what they're expected to do and that they can do what they need to do in that state.
Well, you were talking earlier about the evidence-based practices. Is that helping you with your job?
I think so. And for me, it's a little easier than a probation officer who's been there longer. Because like I said, when I first started, that was just starting to get going. And you kind of see it where evidence-based practice is not a thing. And I think sometimes people think it is, that we're just giving clients and probationers just extra chances, and that's all that is. And it's really not. If we see someone that is a danger to themselves or danger to the community around them, we're going to step in and, issue a warrant or have them incarcerated for some time if that's what the judge wants to do. But evidence-based practices, we just want to make sure that evidence has shown that someone who is using drugs and we just throw them in jail right away and they come out, it's not working.
Right.
So we're trying to, get them the treatment they need and the help that they need to, eventually that when they come off probation, we don't see them again. We don't want probation to be a revolving door where
that's the way it's supposed to work.
Exactly. So we don't want them every year. I shouldn't know, a probationer shouldn't know me by name. I mean, that's probably not good. So with the RSAP, program that we talked about, it's been really good.
Good. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being, Eric, thank you so much for being in here. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Talk to you later.